Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right with Carlson, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Derek. Fighting scores! On the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They score! Scores! They score! Now they catch each other and they both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the mile-high city of Denver, Colorado.
And St. Louis, Missouri.
Missouri. Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 23. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, for Friday, March 26th, 2021. If you're hoping for a podcast preaching the benefits of reclaimed barnwood, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley.
And I'm Sean O'Brien.
And as always, we thank you for tuning in with us.
If you're new to hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups in the upcoming weekend in the AHL for you. We both watched a lot of games, and we're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you might want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats you're going to hear from us, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or point shares, or the newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out. So you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes. And let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes today trying to find a penalty to call to balance out the game. So why not spend a little more time talking hockey with us?
Oh, I hope they didn't have their mic on while trying to do that. That's all I got to say about that. Anyway, hey, got a busy weekend. As always, we're in the midst of the strangest AHL season on record. And let's just dive right into it. The weekend coming up of, Friday the 26th through Sunday the 28th. as I pause, as I try to do math after a busy day at the day job. Oi, let's get started with Lehigh Valley and Binghamton. So Lehigh Valley's style of play. Sean, take it away.
Lehigh Valley's, I think, at their best when they can counterattack. Unlike Rockford, they're dynamic in their rush chances. They'll look off goalies, they'll drive to the middle, they'll circle back and find trailers. This is a very deep offensive team that can roll 3 scoring lines, maybe 4 good scoring lines, depending on who's where on the lineup.
So that all said, they are currently at the top of the North Division standings, Lehigh Valley, but they haven't exactly been a dominant team on a consistent basis. Why do you think that is?
Their goalies are not voodooing hard enough. Per Brad Keffer over at fancystats.com, that's fancy with a PH, PHANCY, stats.com. Phantom goalies have allowed 6.72 goals above expectation this season. That means you would have expected them to stop 6.72 more goals than they have based on the difficulty of the shots they faced. Alex Lyon is in Lehigh Valley for an unknown period of time. Hopefully he can help with that, although he looked rather rusty against Hershey, bad rebound control, and looked to have trouble tracking and getting into the flow of the game. I don't anticipate that'll be more than a game or two long problem, though, as he's proven to have quite the track record of being a not elite, but very usable starting goaltender in the AHL, which is not something you can point the finger at a lot of guys this year and say. So I think he will be okay, but they have definitely gotten problems in the goaltending department for consistency early on. I know I have never been on the Zane McIntyre train this year. I'm not on the Zane train. I was scared of Felix Sandstrom in a bad way. So this is something that I kind of saw coming for them, but it's really kept them from being a real dominant team in this division. And while their season-long PDO stands at 103, I also think that that's very skewed. They've gotten below average goaltending, but they've gotten above average shooting. It's not that unexpected based on the level of talent that we see on the roster. They have good forwards and not so good goalies. And obviously shooting percentage and save percentage are not related. But what concerns me is if you start to see that shooting percentage go cold a little bit, whereas goaltending doesn't heat up to kind of fill the gap, I think you're going to see some bad outcomes that will likely result unless you get the goaltending to get a little luckier with Lyon in town. Maybe that's what we see. But there is that possibility of seeing some of the shooting luck rather, come down a bit. And that should be scary if you're a Lehigh Valley Phantoms, because that's what's driving success right now, in my opinion.
Gotcha. That said, I know we've been focusing, we've tried to spread the wealth as much as we can on this podcast. And even though we cover the same teams in these series and divisions, because that's the world that we're living in currently, where, there is a division in the AHL with only 3 teams, but we're talking about the North Division. They've got a few more teams, but focusing on Lehigh Valley, what would you say the keys to the weekend are for them?
Well, number one is pressure. We saw Binghamton look competent in transition for the first time all season against Hershey, but I'm not a believer yet. I don't just want to see them do it. I want to see them do it for stretches of games before I'm willing to call them a semi-competent team. But we've seen what happens when the Devils look awful in transition. And Lehigh Valley has more than been a good forechecking team. They use the 2-1-2 wide forechecking scheme, which not a lot of teams do. It's aggressive. You're putting guys on the puck carrier and his first outlet right away. It's what the Flyers use in a lot of cases and what they've had a lot of success with. And I think if they can manage to keep that pressure up on puck carriers and force them to make bad plays up the wall, that is going to be what helps drive their success, because like I said, we've seen what happens when the Devils look bad in transition, and Lehigh Valley can force them to look bad. I also think another big key for me is they have to stay disciplined. Bingo's power play works very well, which I think we're all a little bit surprised at, but it does. They structure it very well. They scheme it very well. They have talent in the right places on that power play. And Lehigh Valley's penalty kill is very, very good, but given that the goaltending there has been unreliable, this is not a moment in which I want to give a good power play opportunities to beat my not great goaltending. And having a good PK doesn't mean you can just throw 8 chances at it. This is not a moment to screw around and find out if your PK will hold. So I would say that those are the 2 big keys for me, is discipline and making sure that forecheck is what's driving play.
Lehigh Valley, second in the North Division, 8-3-2 record, 18 points. That's good for a 6.692 point percentage. Very nice. Binghamton, still in the basement there. Big surprise. 3-5-3-1 for 10 points. That's a .417 points percentage. Their games this weekend, Friday at 7 p.m. at Binghamton, Newark, New Jersey. Got to enunciate that a little clearer. Saturday at, what's that?
Big difference between New York and Newark.
Correct. And being the Westerner that I am, I don't want to slur that together by any means. So Saturday at 7:05 p.m. at Lehigh Valley. Sean, who do you got?
I'm taking Lehigh Valley for the sweep. I don't believe in bingo. Like I want to believe in bingo, but I don't. I'm taking Lehigh Valley, but I think that this will be a wild series because I don't think the goaltending on either side has really been as good as it could be. So these could be some wild games. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. Gosh, this is a tough one because, Bingo, they grabbed a game this past weekend, and I think they're going to do it again. You know what? I'm going to say Bingo takes that first game, home cooking, quote unquote, and Lehigh Valley will take the second, as much as home ice advantage means this year, which isn't a whole lot. So, well, we're only about 9 minutes into the program so far. We blew through that preview pretty well, but
hold on. Home ice advantage counts for 0.5% according to the model. The model has Lehigh Valley at 65.5% favorite on Friday's game in Binghamton, in Newark, Binghamton, New Jersey. And when they're home, they are a 65.9% favorite. That 0.4, they're just squeezing out of there. for home ice advantage. So the model is on my side of things, taking Lehigh Valley to sweep.
That's fair. That is fair. And I'm sorry I cut you off. I just was, you put so much hard work into the model. I should never cut you off when it comes to producing those numbers. So my apologies. Please forgive me, Sean. Will you forgive me?
I forgive you, CC.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right. In all seriousness, we have a guest, our first guest coming on the show after this break. Like I said, it's only been about 9-10 minutes, but hell, let's take a break. Why not? And we'll bring on Cody Severtson from the Canucks Harvest. And Harvest, huh? Yeah. It's going to fit right in. He's going to fit in well. So we'll be right back. Okay, so we have covered the Lehigh Valley Phantoms versus the Binghamton Devils. Now we are going to segue back to the North Division. And, well, it's a seg, but it's sticking around the Northeast there, of course. And we brought a friend, and he's showing his face for the first time on this podcast. He is unveiling himself. I don't know if he was keeping it much a secret. You know, he's got his photo on his Twitter and everything, but he covers the Vancouver Canucks and the Utica Comets, and he's a very knowledgeable guy when it comes to the Canucks farm system there. And you can follow along with him at Cody Severtson. That's CODYSEVERTSON. I guess I could have said that for the last part too, but I wanted to pump his tires, give him a little introduction, everything. As his Twitter handle indicates, Cody Severtson. Welcome to the program, bud.
Hi, fellas. Glad to be back.
Howdy. Good to have you back, my friend. Anytime
Thanks.
we need to talk Utica, you're always welcome. So
hopefully we're a bit lucky this time. I believe we planned this for last week or something, and instantly the entire North Division kind of went topsy-turvy. Bunch of COVID breakouts again. Fingers crossed that this doesn't happen for this weekend and we can actually have a little bit of a deep dive, go somewhere this time.
Hey, it was a bit of fate, bit of kismet, because you weren't available last weekend. So it was just the stars aligning, and now you are. So Utica's going to play this week. I've got a good feeling about it. So.
I hope so. Otherwise, this would be the second time we've tried to preview Utica and Rochester, only to get side swipes. Like last episode, I think by the time we posted it, it was 52 minutes before Utica's second game got canceled. So we're hoping for at least to make it 2 hours this time.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, let's go at least a couple hours instead of sub 1 hour. But hey, let's focus on the on ice product and hope that we don't have any cancellations. Big focus on this, and every weekend for Utica is going to be special teams.
Yes.
So Sean, take it away a little bit, and Cody, chime in after Sean sets the table a little bit here.
Sure. Yeah. So Utica draws the most penalties per game in the AHL and takes the second most. Syracuse is 15th in penalties drawn, 3rd in penalties taken. Rochester is 8th in penalties drawn, 4th in penalties taken. So a lot of the game amongst these three is going to be spent 5v4 for somebody. That being said, there have been mixed successes on penalty kill and power play for the Comets. Cody, what are your thoughts when you see the special teams get out on the ice there for Utica?
In regards to the power play, I think they've done okay with what they have. When they had Sam Annis on the team and they had Nathan Walker on the team, they had a loaded NHL caliber power play unit that didn't really need to try that hard to score. Things just kind of went their way at all times because you had a core group of guys who could distribute the puck clearly. Since Walker and Annis have left the team, though, they've really kind of struggled to form some semblance of chemistry. There's a definite lack of knowing who's going to be the shooter in that first unit. They're still scoring at a decent clip. I think in their last 4 games, they're operating at 15%, but then that 5th game, if you went back to their 5th game, they got 3 goals on, 4 tries or something. So it kind of makes it look a bit better. But they're really struggling to find someone that's just going to be that one-timer or that shooting option. A lot of their scorers are actually primarily found on their second unit. Like you have Jonah Gadjevich, who's like the only player on the Comets right now who can actually score goals either on the power play or at 5v5. And they're desperate to find someone who can step into that role on the power play, because especially now that Cole Lind is up in Vancouver getting a fractured nose looked at, like he was their backup option for a shooter. So now they're really in it tough for finding someone to be that option. So if, fingers crossed that we do actually get a game, I'm very curious as to whether Sam Anis will be kind of forced into that shooter role, even though he's way better off as a distributor, but he's one of the few forwards in the entire Comets group that has displayed like an NHL caliber shot. Penalty killing, though, that's a bit different because they look okay, but the big caveat is their PK is mostly kids that are adjusting from like WHL or from the NCAA. Like this is their first crack at defending against, top tier AHL caliber talent or, subpar NHL caliber talent. Like Rochester's power play is like just absolutely rocking. They have Jack Quinn, who's like just like this dynamic force of speed. And even though the goals haven't really come, like he's just like a dynamic offense that they're constantly facing in these games when they actually are facing them in games. So like they're trying their best. Trent Cull rolls a penalty kill that's really encouraging of his young guys to go for the shorthanded opportunities. Like they haven't got many shorthanded goals, but like their reins are kind of off the penalty killers to be aggressive on their forecheck. And that's kind of been their bread and butter, both shorthanded and at even strength, is to have one player just relentlessly forechecking in the offensive zone. And then that second and third forward kind of hanging around the neutral zone. It's a way better refined system than I've ever seen them play. Like last year, there was no system. It was just, hey, everybody who can shoot the puck, get into the offensive zone and crash the net, and let's see what happens. And then the year before that, it was the system was feed Reed Boucher pucks. So the fact that they're playing like a more structured system that relies on like attributes you would expect from like an NHL team, like a heavy forecheck, two-way play, 200-foot games being played out of like their kids that have never played more than 18 minutes against a 28-year-old in their life. So they're asking a lot of them, and given the fact that they're facing like a really heavy offensive team in like Rochester or Syracuse to a lesser extent, like every second game, I think they're doing okay. There's still tons of room for improvement, like especially on the defensive side. Like I don't think the D pairs are really holding their own. They're doing okay, but they're not nearly as physically engaged as I would expect them to be. They're still blocking shots. They're still getting sticks in the way to deflect chances and passes, like cross-seam passes into like the slot. But like just the actual like battle side of it, they're really relying on their forwards, which, it's fine if you want to play it that way, but you can't expect Will Lockwood in his debut season to be coming out for a 30-second PK shift, his like second in the past 2 weeks, to be the only guy laying hits and trying to steal pucks. It's not really the most effective way to do it, but I don't know. Maybe you've seen different in any of the footage you've seen.
I haven't minded their PK so much. Like, I mean, they play the check press, which we've talked about on the show, is like the PK system that everyone that's not Iowa in the AHL and basically every NHL team plays. I don't know what Iowa does in their PK yet, and I've watched a lot of it, and I'm still like, I don't know what you're doing here. But Utica has, you talked about their forecheck a little bit. Like, and I am usually one that's like aggressive forechecking. I'm all for it. I love the, turning out everything up to 11 and just playing, guns blazing hockey. I don't like their penalty kill forecheck. Like it's that dude who's in their offensive zone as that one of the 1-1-2 is so far in. And it's like, if he were doing it as a like kind of a hybrid where it's like, all right, they don't have a good possession of the puck, they're like still not settled, go press and see if I can make a turnover happen? Sure. But that's not the case. I've seen them where it's just like, and even if it's like the defenseman waiting for line changes with clear possession behind the net, that dude is still like right at the dots. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. And it never does at those moments when it's like a defined possession. He just walks right around F1, and then it's basically just everyone through the neutral zone as a 4-man unit. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to give up the zone in that case because you have no back pressure. And I don't think in those cases that forecheck is really doing them any good. I think if they turned it into having F1 have to make a read that like you have a good chance of getting a turnover here, or at least causing some delay, that would be a much better move for them. But as it is right now, they're letting that F1 loose 100% of the time. And at least 40% of that time, he has no chance at it and is just getting torched. And then the neutral zone is, a snowplow of Americans or crunch coming through. You give up the zone, and then it's not very good from there. And they have to play Rochester every second game, who's got a surprisingly good power play. Like if you would have told me on paper, yes, Quinn is very good, but like JSD is okay-ish,
they've got a bunch of like veteran savvy players on that first power play unit. Like they have Remy Ellie, they have JSD, like these guys that have experience winning at the AHL level. So of course, when they're paired against the first PK unit, that is, Lucas Yashik and like Curtis McKenzie or something. And then, Kidd or Tyler Tucker and Mitch Reinke or something, you're going to get like just killed most of the time. And the problem is, like, as you were saying, like they have their F1, just like when they get like that puck for like even a second, the reins are off and they're flying down center to try and create a shorthanded chance. But the problem is Curtis McKenzie isn't a great skater. Lucas Yashik is an okay skater, but he isn't to the point where you would want both of them flying shorthanded to try and create, because neither have a great shot by any stretch. So nothing really comes of it. So as much as I appreciate the coaches encouraging their penalty killers to take these chances, there needs to be some kind of like hand on the shoulder, like, hey buddy, we appreciate what you're doing, but maybe if you see one person going, you stay back in the neutral zone, because neither of you are good enough to make up for the mistake if you can't capitalize on the opportunity. And so far, I think when Lucas Yashik and Curtis McKenzie are out, they've only scored once, and they've been scored against. It's not a pretty number. I don't have the number right in front of me, but I know it's not pretty.
Yeah, and I will say too, like if you don't have back pressure and Tucker is your defenseman guarding part of that blue line, you're in bad shape, because if we want to talk about guys who are like, he's a banger in front. He's not a defend the blue line in transition defenseman at all.
No.
Like he does not have that agility to like pivot and take the puck from guys skating forward. And there are a couple of times where I didn't get to watch enough to be like, yep, they were definitely doing this. But there were a few times where I was watching the Americs break in, and I was like, it looks like they're targeting Tucker. Like they're purposely like, where is he defending the blue line? We want to go to his side.
Yeah, he to start the season, he was like pinned to a pairing with Steven Santini, who was like one of their other guys that was running the second power play unit before he got called up. But he was clearly like the guy on that pairing to make up for all the defensive lapses, the giveaways, the errant passes. Like he was doing everything to kind of carry Tucker as he kind of found his footing. But without him, Tucker's like holes in his, like the way he gets exposed is really obvious to other teams. Like you said, like they have no problem coming down the right side, whatever side it is. I don't know. He plays on the left. They're coming down the right. So he always finds himself in a position where he'll get that first stick to disrupt a pass. But even if he regains possession under pressure, he's very prone to just throwing the puck wildly in any direction. It doesn't matter. He's just playing like PK style. I'm going to throw the puck and hope for the best. And almost every single time it's a giveaway, which is frustrating because he is so good at picking off that first pass that you would hope he would just have that extra second to take the time to find a cleaner first pass out of the zone, but it's not happened yet. And especially without Steven Santini and someone who's very offensively minded in like Mitch Reinke, you don't have like a good fit there. And it's obviously tough when those guys are getting like a lot of matchup minutes at 5v5. So he struggled a bit. And yeah, it hasn't been the best post Santini play for Tyler Tucker, unfortunately.
Now, Cody, you mentioned, well, I mean, you pretty much covered, a lot of ground in that first little blurb that you had there, but going back to Sam Anis, and, you mentioned that, I mean, granted, we saw it with Iowa last year with him and Jerry Mayhew. He's much more of a distributor than he is a shooter. But, just in general, I mean, you talked a little bit about it with special teams and all that. And it's going to be interesting to see where he slots in, overall. And, I guess I'll defer to Sean first, and then again, we'll just do Sean and then Cody again. But
sure.
But yeah, just in the thoughts of, both kind of to follow up and kind of wrap it up with a bow and everything, 5v5, power play, PK, Sam Anis coming back, obviously a very high caliber of an AHL player, one of the best AHL players, if you ask me. But, just overall, slotting back in, coming back into the Utica organization. Sean, your thoughts, then Cody.
I mean, I remember we said in the preview that I was like, I don't think him and Sven are going to play on a line together because someone has to shoot the puck. But, and then, game one through his time in February, it was like, nope, Sam and Sven together. But what do I know? I did see that. I thought the power play unit was interesting that they used because they had Anis with Lind, Reinke, Bartucci, and Walker and or Stevens. And they had Gadjevich on the second unit with Jacek, which, I mean, for me, I want a power play unit that's just, let's stack the first unit with the 5 best skaters you can put on the ice. Like, personally, I wouldn't put Reinke in the 5 best skaters they have. He's probably like the 6th or 7th, but I'm willing to bend and be like, all right, fine. You want a defenseman out there to cover the point just for posterity. I'm good with that. But like, now that Anis has been gone from that and Cole Lind apparently is lacking nose bones, or cartilage, because whatever. Where do you think that he is going to shake out in these power play units, and how is he going to, best be utilized? Because I agree, you put him on the half wall and just let him find seams that don't exist.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, that's his bread and butter. There was, I think, 2 goals before he got called up. He had 2 identical passes to Nathan Walker from like along the goal line while under pressure, and both were just easy tap-ins for Nathan Walker. Like, the guy just finds the perfect seam, the perfect pass. Like, that's why he's like been elite at the AHL level, and for some reason just hasn't really gotten a fair shake at the NHL level. Like, whether that's, just his size or his skating, like whatever. It's the same thing with like Reed Boucher, like elite shot, but just doesn't have the time or space to make it work at the NHL level. As for when he comes back, I think Trent calls the type that he will go back to what he's used to. So he will just load up with Berchi, Anis, probably Curtis McKenzie, and Jack Rathbone, and maybe Gadjevich gets a look instead of, because like without Cole Lind, you need someone in that kind of like bumper spot. I've been campaigning like in every single one of my game recaps, like you got to get a shooter on that first unit. And even though when Anis was on the team with Nathan Walker for that time, you can't have a first unit power play where you have 3 distributors, a defenseman, and then just like the smallest guy possible as your net front presence in Nathan Walker. Like, it never made sense. And since they've, all the call ups and the call up Armageddon, as I like to call it, they've seen Curtis McKenzie as the net front, who's just a big guy. That's about it. I would never say he's there because he's an elite goal scorer by any stretch, but they still don't have a goal scorer. And I think if you put Gadjevich with Anis and, I don't know, put Will Lockwood out there because he's the only guy with NHL wheels and will fight for pucks. He hasn't had the offense come his way, but like, the raw attributes of his game are something that will work no matter what situation, just because his speed is like head and shoulders above everyone else, even if his hands can't keep up. So you need to switch it up a bit, get rid of the all distribution team. Like, this isn't a logistics company. It's a hockey team. You need guys who can get pucks into the net, and having Gadjevich on the second unit with like Carson Fogt, who's fine, still learning, Jet Wu, who provides a lot of offense but cannot score to save his life or hasn't found any of the puck luck that he needs as a guy at 5v5 or on the power play, and Curtis McKenzie or, John Stevens or Nolan Stevens or whoever it is, like fine AHL players, but like you're just not scoring with that group. You have to load up. And if Jonah Gadjevich is like the leading AHL scorer, or he was at one point before this hodgepodge of shutdowns happened, like you got to get him on the first unit. You got to get him pucks. He's got to be your Reed Boucher now, where you just say, okay, do what you can do and have proven to be able to do.
Yeah, that's pretty much my thought too. I would load up that first unit, give them, a minute and a half of the 2-minute power play, and just be like, all right, you guys are going to get a lot of opportunity here. Do stuff. Go do the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially because they have Jack Rathbone on the blue line. Like you said before, like I'm not on the team. They have Mitch Reinke on the team, who's like a perfectly adept puck moving defenseman. He's like a good shot from the blue line, but he isn't wowing you with like his passing game or his like the way he like shakes off defenders. Like, he's just a guy. And with Jack Rathbone on the blue line, you have more than just a guy. So you have more versatility in your attack, to the point of you can open up space for Annis to become a shooter as well. You have space to open up Gadjevich as a shooter. You can get Berchi like rotating the point. Like, there's so much more versatility by moving Rathbone to the blue line in the first unit, that you should arguably have a way better power play than they've displayed in the past few games. They had 8 opportunities, I think 2 games prior to the shutdown, and they didn't score on a single one. Or sorry, they scored once on 8 opportunities. Like, for a team that does have the talent that it has, like, Sven Berchi is an NHL caliber player. He should be in probably a bottom 6 to middle 6 role with an NHL team, and he hasn't gotten that look. But still, with a guy like that who can score as easily as he can as the AHL level, you should be expecting more than just 1 goal on 8 opportunities. But hey,
yeah, I mean, it's funny that we're dissecting the special teams so much, because Utica is still first place in the North Division. But to kind of conclude here, let's talk about the goaltending and net. Now, the Comets' first back-to-back in about a month, after having about 2 weeks off between games here, is coming up this weekend. And so far they've split starts, here in back-to-backs. I mean, is this a weekend where we expect to see Evan Fitzpatrick?
I was actually going to suggest that possibly you see Joel Hofer in a game. I believe he's pretty high up on he was recently drafted, I think 2018, like 5th round or 4th round or something like that. He's coming off of like a good World Juniors showing. It makes sense that he would possibly get a look with probably Jake Keeley starting, I would assume. But like, Evan Fitzpatrick has had like very subpar to average ECHL numbers last year and the year prior. I don't think you're really chomping at the bit to get him in games. Like, they had plenty of opportunities to get him games in the 9 games prior that the Comets had, and they never went to him once. He backed up a few times, but it was never like, hey, we're really worried about Jake Keeley like getting injured. It was just kind of like, let's give Gillies a night off and he can go chill in the press box with some popcorn or whatever. So I would expect, with Gillies up on St. Louis's taxi squad, that we're probably going to see like a Jake Keeley first start on Saturday, and then the next game will be Joel Hofer. That's just my guess. They might do Evan Fitzpatrick a favor and be like, hey, you've been a soldier for us this entire time. Like, you're obviously not like this guy who has NHL potential. They won't say this to him. This is me in my head, but they'll be like, your soldier, will give you a game, but likely because of Joel Hofer's like trajectory and like just his draft pedigree, like I feel like he'll most likely get a full start before Evan Fitzpatrick does. But I mean, we don't know. They've spent the last 14 or 15 days self-isolating because of COVID concerns that started with Rochester playing against, I don't know, Binghamton or whoever it was. Like, it's just been a disaster down there. So they might be like, hey, you've been here longer than this Hoffer kid. We're going to give you the game. Here, whatever. If you lose, if you like allow 5 goals, it doesn't matter. Like, there's not even a Calder Cup this year, right? Like, it's rumored or something that they might try and go for something at the end of the season, but just the way things get shut down, like I find it hard to believe they'd be able to find a way to make it work safely. So there's no real stakes really if Evan Fitzpatrick gets in and they drop like 8 goals. Like, it's not ruining anyone's development. It's getting guys games, and that's kind of what the AHL restart was about, was getting a place for people to play. And so by that, yeah, maybe Fitzpatrick plays first, but I don't know. I'm pretty high on the Hofer kid after his World Juniors. So
yeah, so far as we know, there has been no official verdict on a Calder Cup, but I mean, it's hard to imagine them finding some way to make this work when like Hershey can't even go to New Jersey to play.
Right.
Sorry, Hershey can't go to Marlborough, Massachusetts to play a game against Providence. Like, they couldn't make that work. So it's I struggle to believe that a Calder Cup is going to happen, but there has been no official announcement yet, but it's been more of a, a little bit of reading of the room. But I didn't think this season was going to happen. So
yeah, same.
All right, let's get into picks here. We got Saturday at 7 p.m. at Syracuse, Sunday at 7 p.m. at Rochester. CC, who do you have for these games here?
Well, I don't want to spill the beans too much, but it's kind of a push when you put it through the model. Yeah, so that makes it a little difficult. But I mean, yeah, Utica getting Sam and Oss back. I mean, that's a big thing. Maybe if Cody is right and you go with Keeley and Ned on Saturday night, I say Utica picks up the win over Syracuse, and then you start either Fitzpatrick or Hoffer. And I say they drop the second game to Rochester.
Cody, what are you thinking?
So here's my bold brash prediction. I'm with CC. I think Utica is going to dominate Syracuse. After losing once at the start of the season to them, they've just had their number. They've dominated them in possession, shot attempts, everything, like the works. It's just Syracuse really has had nothing, and the only reason they destroyed them in that one game was because the Comets were coming off a back-to-back, and Syracuse was coming in completely fresh. So I think if they're coming in completely fresh, Utica is going to destroy them. I am about 99% sure the Rochester game is going to get postponed or canceled. Just before I came on, I think it was earlier today, that Buffalo had, I don't know, their coaches had to be isolated because of COVID concerns. There is something fishy going on in upstate New York, and Buffalo and Rochester is just like this weird black sheep where everything that can go wrong seems to be going wrong. So I think we'll be fortunate to see a single game of Comets action. I'm fingers crossed, because I have a piece in the works that is evaluating 10 games played worth of shot attempt data, and I've been stuck on 9 games for the last 2.5 weeks. So I'm desperate for something to happen. But I just, the pessimist in me just imagines this Rochester game is not going to happen.
Yeah, I've been doing the same with a rolling 2-week PDO that I've been working on. But when you don't play in 11 days, well, there's really not much of a sample for that rolling 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I am actually going to take Utica to lose both. I don't have a lot of faith in Jake Keeley. And for whatever reason, Syracuse just dusted Wilkes-Barre Scranton twice. And while I have a lot of questions about Syracuse and Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I know that Wilkes-Barre Scranton's not a terrible team, and Syracuse looks to be at least getting things back. And they have Alex Barry-Boulet currently. And I'm going to ride what I think is a hot team in Syracuse right now. And I'm assuming that Keeley gets that start, which puts someone who I don't have any confidence in at all in the net the Sunday game, I'm going to take Rochester should such a game exist. So I think there'll be close games, but there's enough on the other sides of them to make me think that Utica isn't going to get this. So congrats to Utica for sweeping the weekend and making me look stupid. Like,
hey, it happens, man. I think you're probably right, though. I think it's probably going to end up happening that they're just going to get destroyed, especially after 2.5 weeks of not playing. Like, that's a lot of rust, especially if some of them did end up in COVID protocol or self-isolating and not getting skating time. Like, that's a big gap to come back and then suddenly play against, a pretty tough opponent who's got like decent enough goaltending with Sam Montembolt and with Beret Boulay. Like, if he's on, that's pretty bad news.
All right, Cody, where can people find your work should they've listened to this and decided that they really liked you? Where can people find you?
Well, if the fine folks liked me, you'll definitely like my Twitter at Cody Severtson. You can find my work at the cometsharvest.com. And you can also find me on my own podcast, which is the Creasecast with Lachlan Irvine. So thanks, boys, for having me on. Really appreciate it. Fingers crossed that we actually get to watch some AHL hockey this weekend.
Hey, Comets Harvest, Calder Farmstead. Are we sensing a little bit of a theme here? Did we just become?
It's kind of weird. Look at that. It's almost like we all have the same idea.
Hey, look at us.
Look at us.
Not me.
Not me.
Cody, pleasure having you on, bud. You take care, man.
Guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yep, you bet. Cody Severtson, Comets Harvest. What a character. I love him. All right. Well, hey, we're going to take another break because we just talked hockey with Cody for half an hour. And yeah, the insight speaks for itself.
So good, though. Yeah.
So good. All killer, no filler. So, all right, let's get some ads rolling. Have a listen. Put some coin in our pocket. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. And we give thanks once again to Cody Severtson for coming on the program and, by God, giving us some great analysis, Sean.
Absolutely. I love having Cody on. So I think we should talk about Utica more often just to bring Cody back.
They're first in the North. They're doing well, and they've got Sam Anas and Sam Anas. We've called him Anas for so long, and then we realized we were wrong. It's Sam Anas. So yeah, and he's obviously been a favorite of the show. So anyway, moving on from the North Division up north to Canada, and we're going to talk about the Laval Rocket making fools out of the Stockton Heat, I tell you.
And us.
Yeah, right? And they're going to be facing off against the Manitoba Moose, and we're going to be mainly focusing on the Moose. But yeah, Manitoba, they've had 11 days off, basically.
Yeah, we have teams in the AHL playing back-to-backs, 3 and 4s, crazy schedules, and Manitoba's on a 17-game homestand with 11 days off. Like, this is one of those, this is basically a meme where you see people working hard in the foreground and there's a dude in a hammock with a martini in the background. Like, that feels like Manitoba right now. Just 17-game homestand, 11 days between games. And that's not a postponement or a cancellation. Like, that was planned that this was going to happen this way, which it's just funny to me when I hear that players and coaches are grumbling about the closeness of games. And there are other teams in the league that are like, what? We haven't played it. We don't have a back-to-back all year. We play every 4th day.
Was the Canadian division schedule makers based out of Winnipeg? It makes you wonder. Yeah, that's just how this year goes. Stockton didn't even begin the season at the same time as the other Canadian division teams because I know.
We've beaten that horse plenty. So
yes, we have. We'll let it be.
Let's talk a little bit more about this matchup. And we've talked about Laval plenty, so we're going to stick to the Moose side. Laval already gets to hear how great they are all the time in French. We don't need to give them another whole language to gloss over. So let's talk Moose here. The last time these two met, these teams looked a bit different, or these games looked a little bit different, I should say, than we expect this time. Burden stole games for the Moose last time these two met. And the Moose didn't have the depth they had up front now. There was no Vesalainen, no Gustafsson, and those are big pieces for the Moose. Gustafsson is a top 6 forward for the team and a very talented playmaker, someone who can battle down low effectively and get pucks to playmakers. Vesalainen doesn't seem like he's quite settled yet. I mean, he barely got playing time with the Jets. He's only gotten 2 games with the Moose, and he's struggled with consistency throughout his time in professional hockey. But when he's on, though, look out. That's an NHL shot paired with puck skills that can absolutely embarrass AHL defenders. And having guys like that means they can put, CJ Cease on the third line. Yes, I know the lineup card shows Cease centering the second line and Perfetti centering the third lines. No. Cole Perfetti's line is not a bottom 6 line. I don't care what the lineup card says. Also, Cole Perfetti is definitely starting to find his groove at this pace. I mean, he never looked bad, but there was definitely a little bit of a feeling out process, getting up to speed in his first kind of go around with professional hockey. And he's looked outstanding in their recent games. Like his ability to look forward, see moves ahead, and read the play and just execute that play that he sees it's really, really impressive. He's going to play in the NHL for a long time. His skating still needs work, but I mean, that's true of 3/4 of the AHL when you're thinking about an NHL player in the future. But given how young he is and the, multitude of good skating coaches in Canada, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, the 10th round draft pick overall for the Jets in the 2020 NHL entry draft has 16 games played, and he's got 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points. Not a bad stat line at all. And like you said, he's really kicking it on here in these recent games for sure. Keys to the weekend for the Moose, Shawnee.
First and foremost, something that Stockton learned the other day, good puck management. Laval thrives on the counterattack and forechecking pressure. This means you're going to have to make good decisions with the puck, even if sometimes those are not sexy stretch passes or, quick touch bumpers through the neutral zone. You need to make good decisions with the puck, short support, quick, well-executed passes. You absolutely cannot get locked into a decision. You can't get the puck on your stick and be like, this is where it's going. It's going to the winger up the wall, or it's going to the center in the middle, or it's going here. You have to be loose and be flexible and read the pressure that's coming at you, because if you get locked in on a decision before it's made, before you get a chance to get your head up, you're going to make the wrong one against Laval. Second big key, I would say they have to be physical. They have 4 games in 6 days against one of the best skating teams in the league. They need to finish checks, but not chase hits. They also need to capitalize on the power play. Laval has a middling penalty kill, but they don't take a lot of penalties. And you have to make them pay when they give you that opportunity. The Moose have a very good power play, and I think that this is going to be a chance where when it does get a chance to take the ice, they've got to make sure that puck goes in, or they're at least generating good scoring chances, building momentum. Because Laval's PK has been kind of suspect, but they don't put it out on the ice. The other thing that they should do, which I don't think they will, but we'll get there, they need to rattle goaltending early. If Laval has had a weakness this season, it's been consistency of goaltending. And if there's any notion that I can put negative thoughts into Michael McNiven or any of their other goaltenders, Caden Primo, if I can put bad thoughts in his mind in the first 5 minutes of a hockey game, that's what I'm going to try and do. If it were me personally, I would start the game with 4 forwards and 1 D for the first 3 shifts. I don't think they're going to do that because that's a crazy person thing to do, but I'm a crazy person. Regardless, I think you should try and really push it early on, see if you can score one early, because nothing rattles a goaltender more than, letting up a goal on the first shot of the game or in the first 2 or 3 minutes. You want him to start to doubt himself as soon as you can. And when you've seen guys that certainly are not above reproach in terms of their consistency this season, that has been a thorn in Laval's side. So I would say that's one of the places you got to press. Last thing for me is their bottom 6 needs to, at worst, play their shifts to a draw. Laval is a team that is going to roll 4 lines and attack on all of them. I think their top six isn't as purely talented as the Moose's top six, but they're faster and they play their system really, really well. So that means they could be pulling those top six shifts to a draw. That bottom six, then, at worst, needs to play to a draw. They can't get hemmed in their zone for minutes at a time. They have to be responsible for checking and not get caught behind the play. I'm not expecting them to go out and score goals and carry the night, but they need to keep those momentum swings to a minimum. That's going, because if they get caved in on a shift, that momentum shift, that confidence pickup for Laval is going to bleed into other shifts. And then you have your top six who needs to go out there and try and win you the game, just battling to bring it back to even. You need to give them the best stage they can to have good success. So your bottom six really needs to make sure that they keep it steady and keep it even as best they can.
I know we're focusing on Manitoba here, but I did have Deanna McFerrin, the Laval Rocket correspondent and associate AHL editor for the Simbin, reach out to me and text me today. And she was listening in on our last episode. She said, fun fact about Laval's special teams. They lost their special teams coach to Montreal when Muller was fired, which changes the dynamic of their power play a lot. So yes. Yeah, I found that interesting too. And I said, oh, so you were listening. She goes, I wanted to hear what you had to say. And I said, well, we did predict Laval, first in the Canadian division this year. And basically, just to kind of sum up our conversation, she said, the best thing about Laval this season is that they know when they're going to be out talented. And then they just dismantle the other team's system. And that's exactly what they did to Stockton. She said, Stockton was supposed to be Laval's biggest test this season. And yet they ended up sweeping them in 4 games. I mean, but the thing about Laval that I would warn against is that, Manitoba, I mean, granted that second, third, and fourth, 17, 17, and 16 points. Manitoba's 4th out of 5 with 16 points, but they're just clumped in the middle there. Maybe, resting back on their laurels a little bit and saying, well, Manitoba is not to the same snuff as, up to the same stuff as Stockton per se. But yeah, I mean, Laval definitely has the capability and the wherewithal to dismantle Manitoba should all those things that you mentioned don't fall into place for him. And that's a lot of things. So anyway,
Laval's a really good team. Also, I just want to make one more point about Laval guys going to the Canadians, because I found this to be absolutely amazing. Alex Burrows is Corey Perry's coach, and nothing makes me smile in the morning more than knowing that.
I hadn't even thought of that.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Oh, it makes me so happy. For those listeners who don't know, I would fight Corey Perry on site absolutely anywhere. He'd kick the crap out of me, but I wouldn't care. I would fight him in a grocery store, in the parking lot of a gas station, anywhere I saw Corey Perry, I would fight him. And the idea that he now has to listen to meetings led by Alex Burrows is beautiful.
The hockey world is small. Better be careful. Anyway. Well, hey, let's get some picks in here. Sean, I'm going to let you go first. Who do you got?
I still think I like all of Manitoba's goalies. I like Comrie, I like Seelovs, I like Burden. I think between the 3 of them, one of them is good for a game to steal here. Like, I got to believe, especially as Burden just came back from, I believe, a send down and was not thrilled about it. And you could tell from his kind of answers and demeanor and stuff like that, he wasn't happy to be coming back so quickly. So I think that anger is going to transcend into like a 40 save performance. I'm going to take Manitoba in the game that he starts, which I don't know which one it will be, but I'm going to pick a split and say the game that Burden starts, Manitoba will win that one. Laval will take the other.
That doesn't help when you're making your little graphics, making the graphics for us when we give our picks on the weekend. But I know you've got qualifiers. I know.
Yeah. I'm difficult. What can I say? Our graphic designer behind the scenes genuinely doesn't like me, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, screw him.
Oh gosh. Well, hey, this is a tough one because Laval, they might be caught sleeping, but I'm just gonna see you're riding the PDO train with Henderson, and I'm on the Laval train now. I'm up north. I bought a ticket in Canadian dollars and everything. So I'm going to say Laval sweeps this weekend. So,
all right. I mean, that's
there's
a
that.
fair, they're really good. That's totally fair. I gotta believe there's a steal in there somewhere. So that's my prediction. They at least managed to pull a split.
Well, what does the model have to say about it? It is only a model.
The model is surprisingly not as high on Laval as I thought it would be. They still are a 55.8% favorite, but I know that the model likes Manitoba because they, have more depth, they have good goaltending, but I really thought Laval was going to be a much bigger favorite when I pulled this up. But nope, 55.8, still a sizable favorite, but definitely gives the Moose a very good shot.
That is fair. That is fair. All right. Well, we've let's see, time-wise. I think we could cover Colorado and Henderson. Let's go for it. Off to the Pacific Division. Let's talk Eagles and Silver Knights. Sean, you want to tee them up for me and I'll knock them out of the park?
Absolutely. The Eagles handed the Silver Knights their first loss at home Wednesday, a 5-2 game. Was the key to their success in handing Henderson? What was the key to their success in handing Henderson just their third loss on the season?
Well, in Henderson, they actually have fans. So there is a little bit of a home ice advantage there. So, but yeah, I mean, the first thing that pops out to my mind is kind of the return of Jason Megna, Kiefer Sherwood, and Kyle Burrows. I mean, that didn't hurt. I mean, mainly Megna and Sherwood bring kind of a winning, they bring winning to the team. I mean, Megna, 5 games played, 5 goals, 3-1-1 record when he's in the lineup. Sherwood, 4 games played. He's got 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists, 3-1-0 record when he's in the lineup. Burrows, 6 games played. I mean, not a big impact on the score sheet, but I mean, you don't give the guy the captaincy in Bridgeport for nothing. 3-2-1 in the lineup. So you have those 3 guys back. You've got Connor Timmins coming back. He got reassigned to the Eagles recently. Unfortunately, TJ Tynan and Sheldon Dries have been called back up to the taxi squad. So you do lose Tynan's leadership and, of course, what Sheldon Dries can bring to the team as well. I would have to say having Hunter Miska back definitely helps. Although he's had his struggles at the NHL level this year, being back down with the Eagles at the AHL level, I think it's better for him. I think it's better for the Eagles. And I think it's better for the organization as a whole. I mean, granted, Jonas Johansson is not the answer for Philip Grubauer as a backup. I mean, if anything, if one of the AHL guys gets hurt, then Johansson can go, help them out. He was a great goaltender in Rochester and ECHL Cincinnati a couple of years before that. But anyway, I'm rambling. I answered your question.
You also brought up something good that I wanted to mention there, that Henderson is allowing fans back in. And we actually reached out to Henderson a little bit just to get a sense of what that atmosphere was like. And from what I can tell, it was amazing. Like, people really liked, all of the stuff that the crowd did. They were really into it. That they thought, like, the town crier, the cheerleaders, the new mascot they unveiled, they really liked it. I think the only complaint that I heard pretty consistently was that the sound system needed to be tweaked in terms of volume, which, when no one else has been there to hear the music and stuff like that, that seems fair. But I did want to bring that up, that I really liked the responses that we got to what Henderson was like having fans for the first time, and especially in this weird circumstance. So I was happy to see that it went really well for everybody.
Yeah. And, in all fairness, the Orleans Arena is only a temporary home, thankfully, because it barely was serviceable. That's not fair. It was a serviceable ECHL arena for the Las Vegas Wranglers. And so to not host hockey for, 6-7 years, and then to jump back in with an AHL team. I mean, talking with Brian McCormick, the media director and the broadcaster over there for Henderson, when they were in town in Loveland, I got to talk to him a little bit, and he says he's very excited. And of course, I think a lot of the fans are, and of course we are very excited to see that brand new shiny arena that they're having built there in Henderson. Yeah, that's going to be a destination to go and say, hey, let's go to Vegas. Sean, let's go to Vegas, and we'll catch an AHL game and and maybe partake in some other activities as well. Perhaps.
The last time I was in Vegas, I was there for 11 days.
11 days. Wow.
My feet were like, I literally had pain in my feet radiating up to almost my kneecaps because we walked everywhere, and like stuff isn't very close by each other. It looks close, but it's actually not. It's all a lie. But like it was the time of my life, and I was like, I had literally $0 left as we were boarding the plane, and my feet were like on fire, and I was still sad that we were going. But yeah.
Wow.
Quickly though, is Henderson handing their ticket in to the PDO train?
They might be stopping. They might be, gosh, I don't know how far along they are on the line right now, but they might be taking a little break, might be taking a little pit stop right now. I think that this series is going to be a good barometer for that. I mean, Colorado is fourth in the divisional standings. I mean, I know we're talking about Tucson and San Diego being two teams that have trended down, and Colorado's trending up. I mean, they're heading in the right direction. But the Silver Knights' only losses this year have been rather segmented. You had Bakersfield, February 20th. You had Ontario, March 13th. And then you had Colorado on March 24th. What has Bakersfield done since that win? The Kingslayer. They've just, won. They've like been 10-1-1 or something like that, so they've turned things around since they've defeated Henderson. Ontario, same thing. I think that Henderson win was part of a good 4 or 5 game winning streak for them. So Colorado, I think it bodes well for them. I think they turn their fortunes around and maybe get a win or two against Henderson this weekend.
Also, for the record, this is the first time this season in the rolling PDO calculator that Colorado is anywhere close to 100. They are currently 100.5, up previously from 97.8, before that 97.6, before that 96. So,
ouch.
Yeah, they're at least approaching normal. They're at normal luck over the past 2 weeks. Henderson still stupid high. 106.48 on the rolling. Their total is 107.41. So yeah, still insane-o. Like it dipped, their rolling dipped like a little bit last week and then just went back. It's they're literally just copying what Vegas did and pasting it in. It's
pretty much. Yeah.
All right. So Colorado is on a 4-game win streak here. Cece, how do they keep it on track this weekend?
Well, I tell you, having a guy like Martin Kaut back it means the world. I mean, you look at, even if you haven't seen him play and you're just looking at the stat sheet, I mean, he's got 2 game-winning goals since he's returned from his injury. And so, yeah, I mean, having Martin Kaut back, having Dennis Gilbert back, I mean, to have the gritty sandpaper guys, to have those rough and tumble physical guys, the last game that I covered, I think it was, it was the Eagles against, I forget now, but Alexander Fortan, having him back on the ice, he makes a world of difference. Like he's not one of the, showy, flashy players that you notice with the puck, but he's doing the dirty work and he's getting, in the dirty areas, in the corners, and he's really making his shifts productive. And he adds that element onto the ice and on his line and on his shift as well. So Alex Fortan, him being back as well. I mean, I know he's been in a number of games already, but having him back as well, it just helps that, like we talked about, it's having those NHL and AHL guys back, the taxi squad shuffle that happens, these guys are up, these guys are down. I think having, Megna and Burrows and Kiefer Sherwood, that definitely helps as well. Again, I'm rambling. Let me focus it in. Maybe, just maybe, Colorado has found the chink in the Silver Knights' armor, as it were. Forcing more shots from outside home plate. You look at that shot chart from last game, that 5-2 victory that Colorado had. They're really pushing Henderson's shots more towards the blue line. And so, and only holding him to 22 shots. I mean, with a team that has, with a team that is, still 7th in goals for at 3.44 and 2nd in the league in goals against, goals allowed rather at 2. I mean, the Silver Knights they're still the Silver Knights. They're still Henderson. They're still good, but with the Eagles actually capitalizing on their power play, they had 2 power play goals last game. Oh, they're not last in the AHL anymore in power play. They're actually like 24th or 25th now. It's shocking, I tell you. 25th.
Yeah.
25th out of 28 teams. Ontario, Toronto, and Hartford are now below them. So
Jesus, Toronto. What are you doing?
Oh, just boasting a 12.3 power play conversion rate percentage. Oh. Yeah.
We'll talk about them in another episode. We don't got time for that tonight, but
ain't nobody got time for that tonight.
We got a deep dive on the Marlies coming up because that's unacceptable.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
One thing I do think is interesting to point out is Vegas, for the most part, has not been too willing to tinker with their minor league team. They've, called a couple people up here and there, but it hasn't been this mass exodus of like, let's play with your heartstrings and make you guess. Until like last-ish week, right around St. Patty's, they got drunk with roster moves. Sending up guys, sending down guys, Gage Quinney getting yo-yoed, Carl Dahlstrom continuing to get yo-yoed. So I think that's something that plays a factor into it for me, especially when you're like riding this PDO wave, which I feel like is a continuous thing. And once you start breaking that chemistry, that feel, that on the ice, you lose the PDO magic. And that has me thinking that maybe not a chink in the armor, but that there is maybe something afoot here. So let's move into picks.
Okay.
I will go first here. They have 2 game series this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Friday, Saturday.
Are they both in Henderson? Are they both in Colorado, or are they split?
They are both in Henderson.
Both in Henderson. I am going to take that first game for Colorado. Okay. I think, Colorado has been kind of on an uptick. And while Henderson has by no means been on a downswing or anything goofy like that, I think there's enough there for me with the roster shuffling and, my God, at some point this PDO has to come down aspect of it. I think you're going to see a little bit of an upset, an absolute upset in Colorado taking the first game, and then I'm taking Henderson to bounce back and, do Henderson things in the second game. So I'm going to call for a split here.
Okay.
Just very tentatively. Like, I still believe in Henderson, but I think there are some balance coming to the force here a little bit when it comes to how Henderson has looked recently, their PDO numbers, and Colorado looking like they're on an upswing. What do you got, CC?
Oh, I'm, I don't want to be pegged with the homer card here, but, with Colorado trending in the right direction and Henderson starting to, like you said, something is afoot there in Henderson, I'm going to say, I think Colorado's due, and I think Henderson's due on the other end of it. Colorado sweeps the weekend. Yes. I'm gonna call it. Colorado's gonna sweep the weekend.
Ooh. All right, buddy. Good luck. All right, your mentions.
Just feel free to throw me under the bus for that, because, like I said, I've said this before on the podcast, Front Range Hockey or Calder Farmstead, when Colorado has Jason Megna, when Colorado has a Kiefer Sherwood, those 2 guys, that brings a whole different element to the game. And like I said, to have your grinders back, the Dennis Gilberts, the Alex Fortan, and to have a guy that just brings leadership onto the ice like Kyle Burrows, both on and off the ice, of course, but that is just, it's invaluable. And now that Burrows is warmed up and everybody's ready to go, I'm going to say Colorado's going to sweep.
All right. That is a bold choice, sir. That being said,
out for him.
The model has Henderson as, I think, one of the smallest favorites they've been all season. So,
yeah.
Yes, they're still a 56.7% favorite in each individual game, but man, that definitely looks like a mortal percentage there. So we will see. I still think Henderson is very good, but man, CC, that's some stones right there. All right, we'll see how that works out. We're gonna take a break here run some ads quick, pay some bills. So if you guys just stick tight with us for a little bit, we're going to come back and we're going to talk Texas and Cleveland, but mostly Cleveland. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, we have returned from the other side. Hello from the other side. Okay, I'm just kidding. So we've talked about the Pacific Division in our last segment. Let's go over to the Central Division. And unfortunately, Elaine Shercliffe, our AHL Central Division correspondent for Full Press Hockey, is occupied covering the Texas Stars and Cleveland Monsters game this evening. So we're going to cover this first series by ourselves, and then we'll bring on a friend to cover Chicago and Rockford. But Texas and Cleveland, like we mentioned, let's focus on them, and let's focus on the Monsters. And have no fear, Monsters fans. Goaltending help is on the way. Sean, what can you tell us about Danil Tarasov?
A few things. Let's start with the obvious and then get into the more nuanced, shall we? First, he's huge. 6'5". He's on the skinnier end if you believe the weight stats. I tend to take those with a grain of salt, as I've seen them be wildly inaccurate before. And by that, I mean I've seen a player listed as 205 be 188 midseason, as in I saw him on the scale with my own eyes, 188 listed at 205.
Wow.
So, yeah, that leads me to at least not always believe what I see in the height weight things. But he uses his frame well. He can block a lot of pucks and fill the net well. And if there sounds like there's a qualifier coming at the end of that, it's because he does need some movement work. He's been very good. He has very good, but I wouldn't call it great athleticism. He reads the play reasonably well, but doesn't excel at it. He's let in a few too many from long range too, which always concerns me. His movement is a little busy, and I think it stems from his ability to read the play, as he's a bit behind it and then has to scramble, and that makes it look busy. The good news here is those are very fixable things with a quality goalie coach. I know any goalie coach will always say, I would rather have someone who has good athleticism and a good frame and have to teach them more technique and better movement, as opposed to someone who has solid technique and solid movement, but is tiny and not explosive, because those are harder lessons to learn. So he is definitely in the better end of the moldy lump of clay to be shaped. I have seen comparisons to Vasilevsky and Pekka Rinne, though, and I want to say right now, those breaks need to be pumped. I suppose in terms of style and size, yes, I can see that comparison. In terms of raw talent and polished ability, no. He has raw tools, but I would not expect him to come in and be a dominant goalie right away. And I feel like putting those comparisons on him is putting a lot of weight on him that I don't feel like is necessary. Would I be surprised to see him in the NHL as a full-time starter in a season, 2 seasons? No, I wouldn't be. Would I be surprised to see him be a regular Vezina finalist? Yes. Yes, I would. It's possible, but there's a long road between then and now. Right now, I think he'll be a good goalie for the Monsters after he gets some adjustment period, getting up to speed with the style of the AHL, the speed, the nuance, that kind of thing. But the Monsters desperately need better goaltending right now, and I think he's going to be a very clear upgrade to that, given maybe 1 or 2 kind of awkward starts.
Yeah, it's bound to happen when, your parent club trades one of your best goalies on the depth chart over to Toronto for sure. So anyway, keys to the weekend, Sean.
Well, they're likely going to need to win this game 5v5. So let's start with the bad news of that. Texas is currently 19th in penalties taken per game and 6th in penalties drawn per game. A big part of their success is their 9th ranked power play that also gets a lot of ice time. You draw the 6th most penalties, you get to go on the power play often. Cleveland is 25 in penalties taken per game, which is good. That means they're not going to send Texas to the power play that often. It limits the amount of opportunities the Stars have to use that weapon. They're also 25th in penalties drawn per game. So that top-ranked power play is kind of likely to collect dust this weekend, because they're 25th in penalties drawn. Texas is 19th in penalties taken. You're probably not going to see too many calls go their way, unless you have to balance one out because you're Tim Peel or whatever, or any ref. We'll get to that later. But it's extra bad because 5-on-5, Texas is 3rd in the league in even strength goals per game. Cleveland is 20th. They're going to need to win this game 5-on-5, and doesn't bode well for them. Another big key for them this weekend is Haluka needs to go back on a line with Fix-Wolansky. It's the only time he's really looked good this season, but it doesn't mean you need to stack the top line and pray for a draw when the other lines are out there. Let Tyler Sakura play between Foodie and Meyer. Nathan Gerby between Scott and Sherwood. Haluka between Angle and Fix-Wolansky. Boom, I solved it. See, it's possible. Play Haluka and Fix-Wolansky together. They're the only time that Haluka has really looked like the player we thought he can be this year, and otherwise it looks like he's just dragging boat anchors across the ice. Like, he needs someone who has the talent that he doesn't have anymore. He still has good shooting talent. He still has good hockey IQ, but he needs one of them youngins to go skating around and get him the puck. Another big key to the weekend, and this may sound vague, but they need to start hot. This isn't like the usual start hot where you get off on the right foot and that's always good. That'll help you in every game, blah, blah, blah. Texas has scored in the first 10 minutes in 5 of its last 7 games. They're going to want to come out guns blazing, and the Monsters absolutely cannot let them if they hope to win this game. The Texas has been a good team that in the first period in just setting the pace, setting the tone, and then they can go on cruise control the rest of the game. And Cleveland does not have the firepower, in my opinion, especially 5-on-5, to try and play from a 2-0 deficit from the second period onward. So they need to come out, start hot, and make sure that they don't, let Texas get an early lead so that they can coast. Last thing I'll say for a big key to this weekend is puck management with a boring forecheck. I've seen Texas win games with beautiful counterattacks. They'll get a turnover, and it's off to the races. Cleveland dethroned a talented team like that already this season. Chicago. And they did it by executing well, not trying to force plays, and unfortunately, a boring forecheck. I hate advocating for hockey this way. It's slow. It's not fun to watch. It's not innovative. It won't move the game forward, but it is effective. And that's what they need to do here, is they need to make sure that that forecheck is boring, it's passive, and it creates a dump and chase kind of game for Texas, because that's not what they're good at. They want to play track meet hockey with you. They're fast. They're good on the rush. You need to make sure that you slow that down.
And it's interesting. The Fix-Wolansky, I just took a look at the starting lineup for Thursday evening's game, which is when we're recording. Fix-Wolansky is not in the starting lineup, at least in the projected starting lineup. So maybe he either got called up when we weren't looking, or he might be. He might be on the injury.
Called up when we weren't looking. Let me look.
While you're doing that, I will say Gerby, Sakura, and Foodie are on a projected line. So unfortunately, I can't look on the.
No, he's not. He didn't get called. If he got called up, it's not on Cap Friendly.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. And Haluka, Dunn, and Sherwood were on the line, and then you got Poulet, Scott, and Meyer. So there you go.
That's not good.
But Cleveland, I will. The game just went final right as you were with your spiel there. Cleveland taking that first game in the 3-game series 3-1. So added an empty netter towards the end of the game there, so it was 2-1 really. But yeah, so with Cleveland taking the first game 3-1, you got another game on Saturday at 7 p.m., another game on Sunday at 4 p.m. Sean, who do you got for picks?
I'm taking a split here, but only if Kivlenieks starts one of them. I know Kivlenieks has been bounced around a lot from, Columbus. If he can sneak into a game here, I think they will be okay. And they can, steal a game. But otherwise, I don't have any faith in Brad Thiessen, and I think Texas is just a better team. So if Kivlenix gets us in here, I don't think Tarasov is going to make it in time for the series. Between coming from Russia and quarantine protocols, I don't think he gets in. Mm-hmm. So if Thiessen starts both games, I'm taking Texas. If Kiv starts, I will give them that game.
Okay. Brad Thiessen did start tonight, and of course his backup was Hayden Stewart.
I mean, I understand why Stewart is there for his own sake. Like, I'm not going to blame him for taking the shot, but like, knowing the goalie coach for the Blue Jackets is not a good reason to be in the AHL.
No, it's not very productive for the win-loss record when he's called into duty. If he's going to be called into duty,
they're not going to put him in.
No, they're probably not. He's just a warm body at this point.
Yep.
So I'm going to say, I'm going to say split. And I'm going to say Texas comes back on Saturday, rebounds, gets that win, but then drops the next one on Sunday to Cleveland. So Texas on Saturday, Cleveland on Sunday.
All right.
There you go. What does the model have to say? It is only a model.
The model says Texas is a 51.8% favorite. So the model thinks it's actually really close. That's interesting. I'm kind of surprised by that. I would have thought Texas would have been like in the neighborhood of a 58% favorite, but I mean, we'll see. As you can tell, I don't always agree with the model that I program, which should give you a clue that I don't put my thumb on the scale anywhere.
No, you definitely don't. And but I do think that Texas losing 3 out of 4 games to Colorado probably didn't help. Just saying. Yeah, but anyway. Well, hey, we've got one more guest for the show to come on the program. Andrew Rinaldi from the Sinbin.net. Got a little excited there, stumbled over my words. But his first time on the program, he's going to talk a little bit about the Chicago Wolves and their upcoming series against the Rockford Ice Hogs this weekend. Lord willing, and the COVID-19 don't rise. So hang with us. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to see Rinaldi on the other side. And hang with us. Listen to some ads. Pay us some money. Well, they're going to pay money. Okay, we'll be back. Okay. We've got another guest on the show, and we're going to be covering the Chicago Wolves and the Rockford Ice Hogs. Nice little Illinois rivalry there, of course. And who else but Andrew Rinaldi from the Sin Bin to come in and give Elaine a little bit of a break, a little bit of a breather. Actually, she's covering a game currently. So without further ado, Andrew Rinaldi from the Sinbin.net, our old stomping grounds. Andrew, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Hey, thanks for coming on. And I know you're a little bummed out that Chicago hasn't been able to, hit the ice recently, but we're here to talk and maybe be a little bit of a salve for that. So
yeah, hey, it's new weekend, gonna turn a page here, and hopefully, it's a bummer, missing out a nice series against Grand Rapids, but hopefully the boys just keep plugging along here.
There you go. Yeah, they're pro hockey players, so you'd expect nothing less for sure. Now, hey, Chicago stubbed its toe against the Monsters, and then they had a bit of a get-it-right weekend against the Central Division's favorite get-it-right opponent at the moment, of course, in the Iowa Wild. So, as you do in the Central Division, especially against Hunter Jones. So,
yeah, poor guy. I almost felt bad for him. Yeah.
almost, right?
Almost. Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Biggest difference between the two series, Andrew, we'll get your opinion here, but Sean, I'm going to punt it over to you. What did you see as a big difference between those two series?
I mean, no Tanner Jeannot. I think that was a big difference for the Wolves. He does a lot for them, and I think his absence from that Monsters series really drove home some points of the value he brings each and every night. And I mean, the Monsters played a very good game against them. They forechecked them very well and made sure that they weren't able to do what is their bread and butter at the moment, which is counterattacking, getting in transition, creating odd man rushes. The Wolves seem to be very okay with just playing in track meets. Personally, though, my bread and butter is bread and butter. Forechecking never comes into this equation at all. But we'll see. Andrew, what did you think that you took away from these two series that were the biggest differences between the Monsters and Wild series?
Yeah, I think the series against Cleveland, it was a team that kind of had its identity taken away. I mean, Seth Jarvis was called back to junior. Jeannot is he's Coach Warsofsky's, he's the embodiment of his philosophy when it comes to hockey. He's big, he drives the net, and I mean, he puts up points and he's not afraid of anyone. I mean, he's the straw that stirs the drink on that team. So, kind of piggybacking on what you said about him, his absence was definitely felt. And I felt like in the first game, they outshot him in the first period at one point, 13-0, and was just kept at bay. He was unbelievable that whole weekend. And then Cleveland turns around and their first shot goes in. I think it kind of rattled them a bit. They responded well, ended up losing in a shootout. But then, they turn around and come up against Iowa, and kind of, as we said, they kind of pumped them a bit, as they've done all season. And I think they kind of got that identity back a bit there. And then, of course, having Jeannot, again, do what he does, that obviously doesn't hurt. So I think they're going to be coming in here against Rockford, kind of just keep the wheels turning, do what they've been doing. They know what they're capable of. And he's gonna be leading the way. He doesn't really wear the C on his jersey, but I kind of feel like he's the guy who just sets him up and sets him running. I mean, when you look at the Wolves, right now they're leading the league in two big categories: goals for on average and penalty minutes on average. And again, if you want to find someone who kind of embodies that philosophy, you got to look no further than Jeannot.
And, it wasn't, you look at, it wasn't just Jeannot, it's just call-ups everywhere. There's your Buzz Lightyear meme right there, but it's Jarvis gone, Pitlick gone, Davies gone, Allard gone, Keane gone. It's just, and that it's just the spirit of the season. You're going to have periods of feast with those, NHL, AHL fringe guys on the taxi squad. And, they're going to be unavailable to either an NHL or an AHL team, or you're going to have just you're going to have those guys back on the team and able to contribute. And of course you have the CHL, those juniors guys, heading out in those leagues that are playing this year. But yeah, it's just been kind of that's half your top scorers, your top 10 scorers rather this season. And, in the clearing of the guys ahead of them, is it, Dominic Bach's time to shine? Is it time for the German to step up to the plate?
Yeah. Bach you can tell he kind of, there's some adjustment at the start of the season where, he's kind of finding his pace. He started over in Sweden. Now he's in North America for the first time in his career professionally. It takes some getting used to, but once some of these guys get called up and he gets a bigger role, gets more comfortable in the system, I think you're really starting to see these last couple games, he's starting to shine. Now, let's hope that these postponements don't derail his momentum here, but I've loved what I've seen from him. I mean, he's tenacious. He's spent a lot of time on the penalty kill as well, so he's got the coach's trust there defensively, and it's just a matter of keeping that momentum rolling. What Coach Warsofsky's done with just losing such a core of his offense there and defense while we're at it. He's just done a fantastic job getting these guys ready to play. So I expect just as much coming in the Rockford here this weekend.
Yeah, and speaking of guys whose time it was to shine, Jamison Reese juked a defender out of his jockstrap in his second professional game, and then has promptly gone on to 2 goals and an assist in the 10 games since. What's up with Reese?
I think he certainly got the talent to succeed, and I don't think he's necessarily playing bad. He's got a lot of different elements to his game, and one of them was on display against Grand Rapids a couple weeks ago, where he's just in the guy's face all night. He had a couple moments where he was chirping Dylan McElrath there, and that's punching a bit above his weight class, but you got to love the tenacity from that guy. The numbers, I think they'll come along as the season goes on. He certainly impressed to begin, and I think it's he's a young player, and he's not everyone's going to be Seth Jarvis or Phil Tomasino coming in and just lighting the world on fire. I think he's got to take some time to adjust, but he's certainly not going to be without his share of opportunities to do so. So I think this is going to be a big weekend for him coming up here, and we'll see if he's driven to go to the net and make some offense happen, or if he's trying to get in someone's head. Might be a little bit of both. We'll have to see what happens.
Absolutely. Since the Wolves last played the Ice Hogs, Rockford's managed to actually do okay. They've beaten teams that I can point at and be like, no, the Ice Hogs are a better team. They've scrapped out some points against tougher competition. Dylan McLaughlin has been stepping up, as well as Cody Franson showing that Father Time is not quite won that race just yet. For me, if Chicago loses this series against Rockford, it's because three things happen. Number one, Cale Morris played both games for Rockford, a thing that has not happened that much this season because I'm convinced that he insulted a coach's kid or something, that they've just been locking him away, insisting on playing a rotating cast of guys behind him have just not been as good. But Cale Morris, if he plays both games, I think they at least can have a shot. Second for me is the improving neutral zone play we saw against Iowa is real and not just an Iowa's bad thing. That was one of the big keys that Rockford's had previously and shown that Chicago, if you can forecheck them well and conservative and make it boring, you have a good shot at that. Rockford, I thought, controlled the neutral zone well against Iowa, but there's the factor of it's Iowa. It's Iowa.
Yeah.
And last for me is that they somehow Rockford has to get this lineup chemistry going, despite the giant swaps of players that the Blackhawks did, sending 5 guys down, calling 4 up, having them play 1 game in Rockford, and then completely reversing that roster move 2 days later. That is a 9-person swap for 1 game, which I guess was just for poops and giggles. Otherwise, I have no idea what that was intended to accomplish.
So
but
Andrew,
I was going to say, for you, what do you think Chicago is a big favorite here in this series. We're not going to try and sugarcoat that. If this goes south for Chicago, what do you think are the root causes of that?
So where I've noticed the Wolves have had trouble, they generate a lot of offense through stretch passes. Their defensemen have been just great getting it up to their forwards, coming through with speed, and they enter the zone like that. Their struggles against Cleveland and Grand Rapids, I think, came in their few losses in the season came when they just set up a wall of defenders up there, and they can't, the Wolves just can't really break through with the speed that they're known for. So they're not really tuned for a big dump and chase style kind of game. And I think that if Rockford wants to see any kind of success, they got to build upon clogging up that neutral zone. You can't let these defenders get these clear, stretch passes through, because then they're going to burn you on the other end. You got guys, speedsters like Reese or Richard, Suzuki, Tomasino. These guys are going to make you pay if they get an opportunity. So if Rockford's going to want to succeed, then they gotta put up a wall basically, and have Chicago come over the top instead of coming right through them.
Absolutely. All right, let's get to picks here. We got Saturday, 7 p.m. in Chicago, Sunday, 4 p.m. in Rockford. Andrew, who do you got in these games?
I don't want to be too homer with it. I do think that the time off with the postponements and everything, I think we might see if the Wolves are going to trip up, it's going to be in that first game. I mean, you got to get back up to game speed and everything. I think it's got trap game written all over it. I can then totally see them turning around for game 2 of the series and just pumping Rockford. They've responded well from some of their losses earlier, and I can totally see like a letdown on Saturday in time for a bag skate and then a nice turnaround there on Sunday.
I like the logic behind that, but I still think Chicago manages to pull out that Saturday game. But I think that they, it's going to be one of those brutally ugly, like 2-1 in the shootout kind of games. But I agree. I think they pump them Sunday, one of those kind of like what Syracuse did to Wilkes-Barre last night, where it's like, oh yeah, 6 goals in the first period. Cool. We got this. I think I'm going to pick Chicago to sweep, though, just because I still don't have that much faith in Rockford that the places they've come forward in are for legit reasons, and that roster is basically entirely put into a blender, and I don't believe it that they're going to gel well enough in the time that they've just been bouncing all over the place. And I don't think Cale Morris starts because, again, he, I don't know, dinged a coach's car in the parking lot or something.
Hey, that was a nice Lexus.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that leaves me, and I'm gonna go with Andrew's picks, but for a little bit different of a reason, because I'm a little meticulous and I like to pay attention to the details. So Rockford, they are so they're in the midst of a little weird, they lose one and then they win 2 games. They lose one and then they win 2 games. They lost a game, they won a game. So now, they're kind of at the point where it's like, okay, they lost one, they won one. So what does the pattern hold? Oh, they're going to win, and then they're going to lose the next game. So, so sticking with the pattern, Rockford's going to take the Saturday game, and Chicago is going to take the Sunday game.
I like it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. So, all right. Well, we got our picks in. What does the model have to say about it, Sean?
Oh, the model likes Chicago a lot. I mean, I don't think anyone is surprised by that. Chicago on Saturday is a 64% favorite. On Sunday, they are only a 63.5% favorite. That, home ice travel time just dings them a little bit.
Yeah, that 0.5%. That's brutal.
I mean, there's no fans. There's a little tiny sliver of home ice, but that's it. That's
right.
Normally it's 3 or 4%, but.
Well, Andrew, I know when we introduced you, said you're from the sinbin.net. But hey, tell the people where they can find you on social media, and if you've got any articles for the Sinbin coming up.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Sinbin Wolves. I keep up with the Wolves and any kind of related hurricane kind of action going on. My next article is kind of how I brought up with the goals for and the penalty minutes for. Just kind of hype up the weekend series, get everyone ready for a battle coming up, and just talk about how Coach Warsofsky's aggressive style has really kind of made an identity for this team and how they're taking this league over like they're the 1970s Bruins here. I like to call them the big bad Wolves, So
I like it. I like that. That's
so
good.
that'll be next on the horizon there for me.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that. Yeah, you're a good writer and you're a good analyst. Otherwise, we wouldn't have you on. So, Andrew Rinaldi from the sinbin.net. Thank you once again, my friend, for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
You bet, man. We'll catch you later. All right, Andrew Rinaldi from the sinbin.net. Like I said, our old stomping grounds. So, yeah, we're gonna take another break, I believe. Let's
take a break. This luxurious scene behind me doesn't come for free, so just stick around. We will play some ads and we will be back with the speed round.
All right, thanks to Andrew Rinaldi from the sinbin.net for coming on the show. We really appreciate him talking about the Chicago Wolves. And like I told him after we went off the mic a little bit there, I feel like a proud papa because I helped recruit him to the Sinbin, and the AHL team is just killing it over there. So, but hey, we're at Full Press Hockey now, the Calder Farmstead, and we've got a weekend recap to finish up. So, Sean, I'm feeling a little tense. I'm feeling a little I feel like we need to stretch a little bit. What do you think? Now,
Yep,
you're
absolutely.
yeah, you're not stretching though. Oh, there we go.
Loose.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're Woody Harrelson's character, Tallahassee, in Zombieland. You know, does the lion stretch when he's chasing a gazelle?
Absolutely.
And then I'm Jesse Eisenberg, you know, stretching with the rifle there in the field. So anyway, let's get started with the speed round. Here we go. Weekend series: Wilkes-Barre Scranton versus Hershey. Go.
I'm taking a split here. I will take Wilkes-Barre on Friday, Hershey on Sunday. Wilkes-Barre has looked bad recently, but I have to believe that they'll turn it around at least a little bit because not even they are that bad.
I'm gonna have to agree with you. Wilkes-Barre at home on Friday, Hershey at home on Saturday, or Sunday rather. Belleville and Stockton Friday and Saturday, both in Belleville. Sean.
I'll take Stockton in both. I think they are coming off of an embarrassing sweep by Laval. Belleville pulled off some miracles, so I think they will be kind of fat off of their win. I'm taking Nikita in both.
I'm going to take Stockton. They got some get-right games this weekend. They're going to get it right. They're going to sweep Belleville. Grand Rapids in Iowa. Friday in Iowa, Saturday in Iowa. Sean.
Iowa has managed to reload a little bit. They got some good send-downs from Minnesota to get some playing time. I'm going to give them that Friday game, but I think Saturday Grand Rapids gets back and out.
Okay. I'm going to say Iowa. Yeah, they take that first game on Friday, and then they lose. Grand Rapids takes it on Saturday. Friday, we have Tucson and Ontario at 6 p.m. Pacific. Sean, who do you have?
Ontario's gonna, Ontario looks like they've turned a corner. I'm all about it. Black and silver bandit, big.
I agree. Ontario Reign defeating Tucson this Friday. Bakersfield and San Diego this Friday. Who do you got?
Bakersfield. San Diego has not looked good recently since their Seekers hangovers have been continuing. Bakersfield is just red hot. I'm going Kingslayer.
I agree. Kingslayer, Bakersfield. Saturday, Bakersfield and Ontario at 5 p.m. Pacific.
Ontario. I think that Ontario's really turned the corner here, and I think Bakersfield doesn't seem to quite have the number of Ontario that we thought they might previously. I'm going Ontario.
See, I was gonna. We're just picking the same. I want to do Ontario too. It's just I promise I'm not following you this one. Tucson and San Diego on Saturday at 7 Pacific. Sean, who do you have?
I got San Diego making at least somewhat of a turnaround and salvage this weekend here. I don't know what's going on in Tucson. Everything tells me they should be better than they are, but they just aren't. I think San Diego grinds them down.
I think Bunting's going to have a hat trick, and they're going to take the game against San Diego. That's what I'm thinking. Bridgeport at Hartford to finish things up.
Somebody's got to win this game, I suppose. I feel like Bridgeport is due. Go Bridgeport.
And I feel like Hartford's going to take this one, so let's go with the Wolfpack.
There we go. We did it. We did it. Plowing through. Got them in under 2.5 minutes. Well, a little over, actually. 2:46. So that is a brutal segment. Whose stupid idea was that? I think it was yours. But I don't think it's stupid. I think it's pretty wonderful. But boy, are we tired afterwards. All right. Well, that is it for the show. If you guys are enjoying the show, which, if you like us doing insane speed picks to Nintendo music, you came to the right place. But if you are enjoying the show, please make sure you subscribe so you're getting episodes in a timely fashion. Also, please rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to it from. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video and comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter, at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found in our link tree, which is scrolling down below here. But if you're on an audio version, it's linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Our social media buttons, by the way, are all the way at the bottom of that, in case you were looking for them but couldn't find them. Cece. My name is Cece Hockley. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. Check out our program, a lot of other great hockey pods, and a lot of other great sports and sports entertainment podcasts at Full Press Coverage. That's www.fullpresscoverage.com. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at
CC Hawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. You can find me, of course, tweeting about hockey, but I've also got some opinions about music and pro wrestling and random other things as well. So if you follow me, if it's interesting to me, it's not going to be bullshit for you. So that all said, you can also check out my writing at Full Press Coverage at the Full Press Coverage Network at www.fullpresshockey.com. I expanded a little bit and talked about the Avalanche goaltending situation with Jonas Johansson joining the goaltending depth chart there. So check out that article. Recently wrote it. And Sean.
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at Sean O'Brien81. That's SeanObrien81. I'm also on an Instagram that is ever improving at Sean O'Brien_81. If you're interested about all these PDO things or point shares or models that we've been talking about, that's on my Tableau page. And you can get to that at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. Big thanks to Adrian Drake, who made our theme music. I know I love our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction, DYSFUNCTION, so he can make music for you too. Cece, take us home.
I'm going to drive us home. That'll do it for episode 23 of the Calder Farmstead podcast, an AHL podcast. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley. We thank you guys and gals and everyone else for tuning in. And as always, keep your stick on the ice.